I've got an interesting one for you guys today. This is a shoot from April for the University of Cambridge, but I was working with a new department with people I hadn't worked with before, so I wanted to bring my A game, but this production also came with a certain set of challenges, things which were outside of my control took place, and I needed to protect myself as a freelancer whilst obviously maintaining a professional face and great communication and handling expectations. This is a shoot back from April, so as you can tell there's a bit of a backlog of behind the scenes, but I want to share my learnings from this shoot with you guys today. Before we get into that though, my name's Henry. I'm a freelance filmmaker and a lighting camera operator who often does one-man gigs like this. This was a fairly simple shoot, but I'll talk you through the setup. This is our setup for today. Got the key light in as usual. This is like my simplest kind of setup. Classic single camera setup. We opted to shoot for on the wood side of the room with those lovely wood panels as opposed to the stone brick walls. I mean, it's just, you know, a stylistic choice really, but we've kind of given as much space behind the camera as possible. I don't like these plugs. They're really ugly. I might try and remove them in post. Obviously the ones near the contributor, there's not much I can do about that. I might actually just bring the chair in front of that. But yeah, I'm gonna dial things in properly when the client gets back, check he's happy with everything. And then again, when we get our first contributor in, I will just make sure that we've got our exposure where we need it and everything like that. That was great, honestly though, just being able to quickly set up on my own and just kind of dial things in means I'm really happy with the setup we've got, and I even had time to do things like this and just stay really tidy. The awkward situation I was alluding to earlier was a client-side scheduling error. This is nothing to do with me. I showed up, I set my equipment and waited for everyone to show up. It turns out what happened was the person I was working for had given the wrong date to the contributors. So an honest mistake, but it meant that we couldn't shoot in the morning like we'd planned, and luckily I was free for the rest of that day, but my availability for the rest of that week wasn't great. So this was kind of our only window to shoot this video. The time that had been given to the contributors, which was the following day, I wasn't free. I was traveling the next day. So we ended up working something out. I think if I'd gotten into this situation maybe even like a year ago, I probably would have backtracked. I would have said, oh, you know what, it's fine, look, I'm here now, I'll do some work while I'm here, don't worry about it. But the conversation we ended up having was about extending what was initially a half-day shoot. This was a local shoot. It was a fairly simple video, so I was happy to cover the interviews in the space of kind of 4 or 5 hours. Because we ended up having to work around the contributors' availability, luckily they were both free that day. The shoot was then moved to the evening, so we extended it to a full day shoot with overtime, because the conversation I had was that it probably wasn't fair to me to ask me to stay and work evening hours. As a favour to the client though, because this was a lot more of an investment than they'd initially planned for, I brought a second camera, a B cam, on a tripod when I returned, and I decided to reframe our interviews for something a little more grand. Because the sun had moved round, I realised the sun wasn't going to be blasting through the windows as much as it was earlier in the day, and we were able to frame against the large windows in the back, which I think is a nicer interview frame. I should say that we were making this video for a very specific set of people. It was an internal video, so we just needed something professional and clean that we could send out to them, which gave a good impression of the university and this program that we were making a video about, but it didn't need to be super polished. It did, however, irk me to know that there were going to be jump cuts in that initial video, so bringing that B camera just made me feel a little bit more confident about the final product I was delivering. So I think at this point it was like 5:30, and I was just making final changes to this second setup. I think the initial setup was really good, and this one would have been great if we'd started shooting at the time at which I'd set up, but I knew we weren't going to start shooting till 7. What I hadn't taken into account was, as the sun moved round, it started hitting the buildings behind where we were shooting. I did luck out with this shoot day because there was a lot of time to wait around and for me to do a little bit of work, but it did mean that everything I did do was to a very high level, and I didn't take any shortcuts, which was nice. Really nice to have a bit more time actually, because a lot of my shoots recently have felt very rushed. This is our first contributor sat in. You can see I was connected to the camera with the Raveneye app, and this is our B camera, just slightly off to one side and punched in maybe at 50mm, with our wide being quite a wide shot of the room. You can see how much we've included here. The false color on the DJI app is not great, so I've included an overlay here. This is a LUT that I have, and you can see just how much brighter that back wall is. This could have been solved by two things: me predicting that the sun was going to move around and actually hit the wall. This is just not something that I thought of, but we'll know for next time. You can see it's not quite as bad in this shot here, but the other way I could have solved this is bringing in a bigger key light. You can see I photoshopped out the radiator. The more I look at it, the more obvious it is, but for this video, it was definitely good enough. Just a nice aesthetic fix there. And then to end off the day, I suggested we move back to that first setup since I already kind of knew where everything needed to be placed. We were shooting a welcome clip, an introductory section for the start of the video. You can see I've just kind of flagged off a little bit the key light there because it was starting to feel really, really flat on the contributor closest to the light. And my role here was to operate the B cam. I wanted single shots for each of the contributors to help with the edit. The only thing I'm thinking about is these plugs I hate, so I'm going to try and Photoshop those out where I can. Obviously, it has to be a static shot and we can't have people kind of moving around, and I don't want to Photoshop out something that we're later going to see because then people will know it's Photoshopped. But I think just to tidy up the frame purely for aesthetic reasons, I don't think it's ethically dubious. And then this radiator as well was obviously taking up most of the right side of frame, so definitely going to lose that for the A-cam interview angle. But yeah, that's us wrapped. Great space to shoot in. I wish I didn't have to bring the blind down, but apart from that, I'm really happy with everything we got. Anyway, that's how a half day turned into a full day with overtime. This shoot was quite a while ago now, so I've made a few changes to my kit. I've retired the f22C, been using a larger key light, a more powerful key light, and I've upgraded to 2 wireless lavalier microphone systems, so that would have definitely helped with this shoot as well. As usual, sticking to my rule of copying over the footage on the same day to stay organised.